I'm your host, Teppo Suominen, a team coach here at UpCloud, and with me is my co-host, Jannika Jokinen, who's a senior account executive here. Welcome, and a very warm welcome to our today's special guest from Montel Intergalactic, Lauri Kainulainen, the CTO there. Welcome, Lauri.
Thanks, happy to be here.
Really great to have you. Let's dive right in. So please introduce us to Montel and what you guys do there.
Okay, so Montel started about 8 or 9 years ago, 3 nerds skiing in Lapland. And during the skiing trip, we ended up in the Pallas Mountains, beautiful scenery in the middle of all that white. There's a tiny hut called Montelin Maja. And we were planning on doing something together, a consultancy that would do things differently from the other consultancies we were seeing at the time. And we thought that, okay, now if we use the word Montel in our name, we'll have a Lapland hut ready for us. And that kind of, like bad ideas usually do, that kind of stuck. And then, that of course didn't qualify as a name for the official, so we had to add a suffix in. And we thought about, okay, international, global. We decided to go a bit bigger, and then we went with Intergalactic. So that's the name. And an Montel Intergalactic is basically we do product development, software product development, and as well as then a lot of Kubernetes stuff. We build things from IoT to ERPs, from mobile apps to data analytics platforms for our customers. And then the other part of what we do is that we take care of the system. So we build Kubernetes infrastructures and make sure that they run like constantly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, you came quite far from Lapland mountains too.
Yeah. The company is still officially based in Enontekiö, even though we don't have an actual office there, but we're probably one of the biggest companies there.
Yeah.
Have you visited the hut at Montelin Maja?
It's actually been like a pilgrimage for us on several years that we take the whole company to Lapland, and then we go to Levi, and then we also travel to the tiny hut.
Yearly kickoff to the roots.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Good.
nice.
All right. So what brings us here at UpCloud and Montel together is, of course, working and, of course, moving also into the cloud. And that's something that you guys also help other companies with and see, of course, a lot of while developing stuff on top of the cloud. So what type of organizations do you see that are now moving towards the cloud and Kubernetes infrastructure, for example?
I don't think there's a very specific target segment. I think everybody who's not already in the cloud is contemplating or moving already. Of course, kind of what is also interesting today is that there's also a no cloud kind of movement where people are also moving away from the cloud. And I think that all just kind of solidifies the fact that, the cloud is here to stay as an alternative. So you see cloud adoption from, you have banks in the Fortune hundreds who operate completely on top of the cloud. So and you have health companies and everything. So it's not a matter of security or capacity or anything like that. So I think for us, it's moving to the cloud is a matter of cost optimization and efficiency, as well as then comparing that to running things on premise or running your own servers. It's a lot less hassle, and you move a lot faster when you build stuff.
Is the motivation usually is it more about the ease of use and the ability to have a scalable system, for example, compared to on premises where if you need more hardware you have to physically ship it, or is it more about the cost of things or the scalability, or do you see that there are segments here or specific types?
I think the no cloud approach that was kind of popularized by Basecamp at some point, that really, running stuff on-prem really makes sense when you're dealing with companies that have cloud expenses in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands per month. So then maybe you want to consider, but for any small or medium business, running things on cloud just is the most reasonable choice.
For sure.
And then if thinking about, the services and the offering that you can get on-prem and versus with cloud, how do you see that evolving in the market and fitting into the whole perspective?
I think that the kind of the change in the last few years has been that in addition to the big hyperscalers, the big companies, you have more progressive like offerings from companies like UpCloud, for instance, where you have a service layer, like a solid service layer, where us as DevOps guys don't have to build databases or storage solutions anymore, custom built for every customer, but we can then just rely on those ready-made services. So I think that kind of raising abstraction is definitely like one big change that has happened in the last few years, and really helps and kind of strengthens the point to move to the cloud.
Yeah. So technically, if to summarize that point maybe a bit more, that if your application or the way you're working requires a bit more modern tooling and modern services to then maybe ease up the work or the development work or the maintenance and so forth, then maybe it could be good to consider those kind of bit more modern tooling, and then you can then of course help with that kind of transition.
Definitely, and everybody needs a database. So a managed database just makes sense. Everybody needs storage. So an object storage is the cloud native way of storing things. So these are kind of like the new building blocks. If you thought about servers as building blocks before, now it's more the abstraction level is higher, and it's good to get on with the game.
Maybe then looking at the other side of things, what about the challenges that you have seen and faced with the customers who are migrating, especially like if you are a more, let's say, older company, you've already done things a certain way, you're moving to the cloud. There's always a bit of hassle there. So what are the challenges you're seeing there?
Yeah, definitely. There's always a bit of a hassle. I think the thing that people maybe don't want to hear is that migration projects are hard, and they're hard because you need a team that understands the old way of doing things and why they were done that way, and then you need the same people, or at least the same team, to have the kind of understanding of how things should be in the modern world. And then the old way of doing things is something you don't learn in schools anymore. So that's like something you learned the hard way. And luckily we have a lot of full stack developers who've, started deploying stuff into the servers in their closets or something. And now they're now running on Kubernetes, on, doing the latest things. So when you need that amount of understanding in the team, it comes up. You need that, and then you need that to form the path from the old to the new. So there's a lot of thinking that goes into that. A lot of brain power is required, but then also a lot of these migration projects often touch the very core of companies and their business. So in that sense, it's often a very high pressure place to work in, a high pressure project. If things go wrong, then everybody's pissed from the board level to the developers. So some people don't enjoy that. I get kicks out of that kind of stuff. So it kind of fits the Montel way of doing things. But yeah, that's probably the reason why migrations are hard. Just the sheer amount of it.
And especially in the modern landscape where more and more every company is at the end of the day a tech company. Like you said, everybody needs a database. Everybody needs to have a storage somewhere. And when you're moving those around, you're moving the beating heart of the company. And
exactly.
You don't want to do a heart transplantation wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You want to do it in small pieces and sensibly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think especially, I work with a lot of customers, and sometimes they have a bit more legacy environments and legacy hardware and legacy way of doing things, if you can call it that. And then they want to migrate to cloud, or then they actually use a cloud provider or certain cloud services, and then they're looking to use multi-cloud setups or move from different cloud to another. So of course those probably need to be approached a bit different way also on your table.
Yeah.
If
And often this case with older legacy systems is that very rarely do you find a system that's been properly documented, that has like a solid history that you can easily follow. So that's why we do also a lot of just infra reviews, where we just dig into the code and look into the service, like what are they actually running, and try to map it all out so that there's a common understanding of what we're actually moving. And often you find stuff that doesn't need to be moved, so then it also gets simpler in the process.
Yeah. So I think for me, it sounds that, as a partner helping customers with their cloud journey, migrations, or other types of work, that actually you can bring quite a lot of value into the whole landscape of when they think about whether we should move to cloud, how we should move to cloud, or whether we should move from this cloud to this cloud, use these kind of services, and have that kind of brainstorming partner who can also then help on the technical aspect of possible migrations and even the maintenance work and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. And we pride ourselves on being very agnostic. So, approach the system or approach the, the migration from a clear perspective that, whatever tools suit you best, we'll try to dig those out. But yeah, it's at the end of the day, we can do the whole migration, and we also love to do taking the whole DevOps burden from our customers and just making sure that they can focus on the actual software development. Because one of the things that at Montel we believe is that no company, maybe Netflix, but most companies won't win the market by having the best DevOps team or the best infrastructure, but they will again lose the market if they don't have proper infrastructure. So we want to be a kind of a middle step there, where we bring in a lot of expertise and bring a service in where they can focus purely on just developing their core products and putting that code out and doing that. And then we just focus on the nitty gritty, where the code is, does it deploy, and what's a sensible way of running it.
Yeah. And I think that's also like one of the beautiful aspects what we get working together, that some of our customers can then rely on your expertise on the aspects where they need help or they need more efficiency. So I think it's been really great to see that kind of cohesive way of working when there is a customer need for that. So it's been quite interesting in my perspective, at least.
For sure. Maybe looking into the history of migrations and where we are now. You've been working in the field as Montel for around 10 years now, and of course even before that. How has migrating to the cloud evolved from your point of view, especially compared from doing the Kubernetes the hard way? I've got in my notes here, but what's the flow? How does it differ?
Well, it's a lot easier these days, at least. Kubernetes has been around for a decade at least. But I remember being in Google Berlin offices talking with a cloud architect who was working on Kubernetes in the first years, and he advised me not to touch it. It was too raw. And Kubernetes still felt a bit raw maybe 5 years ago, but these days it's so solid that all we are completely behind Kubernetes. That's the only solution we basically advocate to customers. It can be so flexible in many cases. Of course, 5 years ago, setting up Kubernetes involved, getting some servers and manually doing it the hard way, installing, making sure the networking works and all the custom components and drivers for volumes and all that stuff. And these days it's, with UpCloud, for instance, you go online, and the hardest part is to pick a name for the cluster and then just deploy it. So it's from our point of view, it has gotten a lot easier. Of course, the understanding you need to run Kubernetes and run things sensibly on Kubernetes is still the same. It's a massive iceberg, but at least setting up the iceberg is a lot easier these days.
What about the application level then, if we move into what's running on the Kubernetes or wherever else, but in your case, have you seen a change there?
Well, one of the shifts we've seen is doing things more sensibly. Kubernetes is basically a place that thrives on stateless workloads, and running databases or any kind of heavy storage solutions usually is not a good thing for Kubernetes. So one of the things we've seen that has made our life easier has been these managed database offerings or object storage being used more and more, and that really makes our life easier. Still, we do, of course, run esoteric stuff on Kubernetes and weird databases, but those are kind of like more rare use cases.
Have you tried or had any projects, just out of curiosity, where you'd had to take some huge monolith and migrate that into cloud?
Oh, plenty of those. Yeah. We have a lot of customers who come up with or come to us with their old monolith systems and running. For instance, we had a customer who had a framework that we had to dig it out of the Wayback Machine to find the source code and make it run.
Oh God!
And it took some time, but eventually we did, and it now runs on Kubernetes. But of course, in those cases we try to kind of cement that old legacy and just keep it running, and then start building something new,
Yes.
modernizing it piece by piece. But it can be done. But it's
For
not
sure.
just easy.
All right. Another, just a spin-off question came to my head. You mentioned just running things on Kubernetes is easy, especially due to the stateless. Have you guys had to contend with the, I would say maybe a bit past boom now of like serverless infrastructures and those?
Yeah.
Because some companies really jumped on that wagon a few years back.
Yeah, that was a fun trend, I guess. We've done serverless and we've done hybrid setups where serverless is mixed with Kubernetes environments. I can't really recommend serverless for anything because you can do the similar kind of auto-scaling solutions with Kubernetes these days. But definitely, yeah, serverless is often in discussions. Luckily, these days a bit less than previously. So it's kind of like micro frameworks that the discussion has gotten a lot more sensible, and we're actually not talking about serverless because of that weird idea that there wouldn't be a server, because of course there is a server somewhere.
Always someone's computer.
Yeah, it's running on somebody's computer. So I think it's gotten a lot more sensible now, and we talk about the actual stuff we want to run.
Yeah, I would say that speaking about auto-scaling instead of serverless makes the conversation a lot more sensible.
Exactly,
In that.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think also if thinking about, well, you also mentioned that you want to help companies to, optimize their setups and
Yeah.
costs and so forth. And I feel like it's also a lot of the discussions that I hear from the customers that I talk with, that they have a setup that is built and running on infrastructure a certain way today. And then they're thinking that, okay, how should we do things that it would be more optimal in terms of the technical aspects.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah.
of course, that results into usually also some kind of cost optimization when you're
Benefit,
actually
yeah.
leveraging the modern technology and actually the best and the most suitable tooling underneath your application. So I think it's quite interesting then that you can then approach the way and how do you things from many different angles to help the customer achieve those kind of outcomes.
Yeah, definitely. For instance, we have a customer who does a very heavy data computation on top of like AI models. They bring in different models and then they run like big data sets on top of them, and it's all run on Kubernetes. We just use the native Kubernetes tooling. We, instead of firing off a serverless function or process, we have a Kubernetes job that begins, and then we can follow the results and see everything in the same interfaces that we interact with normally. So it's a massive. Also, I would think that you running all of that in Cloud Functions would be a lot more expensive than running it on your own cluster.
Then maybe looking at, like, we of course work together. That's part of the reason we're having the conversation. But why do you choose UpCloud? You already mentioned parts of our managed services, of course, like we offer the databases and object storages and so on. But is there like, did you have a thinking process behind that, or were we just like available?
There must have been some kind of thinking process, yeah. We kind of like to pride ourselves on being cloud agnostic, but it really is easy for me to, when there's when we're starting from scratch, to recommend using UpCloud, mainly for the service layer. You guys offer everything we need to take some of the headache away and kind of work efficiently. and you have the tooling, you have the command line interfaces, and things that nerds love. But in addition to that, it's also good hardware. It's cost effective, and then of course the one thing that's on everybody's minds is that it's a European, it's a Finnish company. It's not going to be touched by the Patriot Act or any of this kind of legal stuff that I'm no expert on, but usually is like a thing
natural consideration for the customers.
Yeah, and especially in the boardrooms on the C-level, definitely a good point to consider. And you guys have what's also important is that you have the data centers around the world. So then there is all the entrepreneurs are always thinking about it. We're going to be big in the US. So then, you have
if you want to scale into Asia or the US.
Exactly, yeah.
Then it's also, I would guess that some consideration at least that you don't have to always choose one of the big three that comes up.
Yes, definitely there's a bit of that. And we've done cases with you guys when we've migrated from the big three to you, and I think it's the kind of same arguments are being thrown there, and makes sense.
Great to hear. And it's really good kind of to see and be able to help you guys there, because we have been built, like here at UpCloud, we've been building on top of the developer first mindset. And it's really good to hear that you guys as developers are seeing the fruits of that in our command line interface, in our Terraform scripts, and are able to utilize that and make it work for you. So
yeah, and I think from my perspective, of course, we've been working on some of these customer cases together, and sometimes I hear the fear from customers that what if we can do the migration on ourselves? It doesn't mean that we can then do anything to improve our infrastructure. And how does it work? Is it complicated? Like, what is all this stuff? And
don't worry about it. We've got a guy.
Exactly.
I know a guy.
I feel so comfortable that I can then just like, hey, for example, we partner up with Montel. They're really great. They're expert on these things. And then, we can help the customer together. Yeah. So I think it's been, usually a common fear that then turns to be actually like not true.
It shouldn't be that big. Yeah, but migrations are scary. They deal with the whole, like the core of the business. The whole circulation of the business is depends on the service running. So I kind of understand their fear, but I also then kind of understand that you probably want guys who've done dozens and dozens of these to participate in the planning. And often, we don't like to do just lift and shifts, but we want to do kind of a modernization while we migrate. So then you need this understanding of the old and the new in around the same table. So it's challenging, but definitely it shouldn't be too much to fear, because at some point you need to migrate. You need to modernize. So.
Yeah, and I think also what you said there about a partner who has been doing things and can show the expertise is actually really valuable, because that creates trust that, hey, we know what we're talking about, and I can give you the guidance, and then take it forward with the customer, and then working together with the customer. That is not only in silos that we do something and then there you go.
Yeah, and then have it.
Yeah.
Here's one migration. Go ahead.
Yeah. And all of our customer relationships then continue usually. So we do offer Montel Care on top of these Kubernetes clusters, so that we take the whole infrastructure burden away from the customers. And then that, of course, then leads into a constant collaboration where we discuss, if we want to change something in the future, or even if we want to participate on the application level development. And that's been really good for us and for our clients.
Do you have a ballpark? How much of your work is modernizing and keeping the systems running? How much of it is migrations? Do you have any guess?
I would say like 30% or 20% of our work is if you take the whole of Montel. So it is 30 or 20% is migrations, including like upgrading and keeping everything up to date on the Kubernetes side, like day-to-day DevOps. And then the 70 to 80% is still product development and doing a lot of custom whatever stuff, from robotic teddy bears to unmanned airships to ERPs.
I kind of do want to see the teddy bear.
Oh, the teddy bear is
mine would
cute,
have been the airships, but here's the difference. All right. Then you mentioned, of course, and one of the key aspects here is that we are a European provider, and you are a European company, and that's something that a lot of customers appreciate. Working especially in the European market, what trends do you see emerging or coming up next year, 2025?
Well, it's hard to, looking at all the money that has been poured in, it's hard to not say AI. So definitely looking at how much money has been put into data centers and GPUs, there's bound to be some interesting things coming in the AI land. And a lot of our customers are also now asking AI in one way or the other, and we're providing different solutions. So that AI will definitely be a trend. One other thing has been this, as I mentioned, this no cloud kind of idea of running on your own or co-located data center, running your own stuff there. That's I don't think that's going to be a massive trend, but the hybrid approach of running some stuff in your own hardware and then kind of running the excess stuff or the quickly scaling stuff on a cloud provider, I think that's going to be one thing, especially for bigger companies who are looking for cost saving.
Question there, actually. Do you see edge cloud computing coming up with your customers, or?
We've had talks, but no major cases at this point. But
I've been seeing it floating around for 7 years now. It keeps on popping up, but no one really grabs onto it except maybe telecompanies. Telecom is the only field where I've seen it actually utilized, but everyone's discussing it every 2 years, and it'll be interesting to see if it comes up again.
For the breakthrough, yeah. Maybe it'll come at some point. Yeah, probably not 2025, but yeah,
probably not.
Let's see. But I think, and then of course one thing that's now been more in the talks has been security. So we've been doing more security reviews, just focusing on the basics. We're not doing pen testing or anything like that, but we review the infrastructures and see if you have those basic oops of opening a database to the public internet or using some components that have CVEs listed that could be the easy targets for a hacker. So a lot of more of those cases are coming in. I think in 2025 we'll be having more focus on that as well.
Okay. Out of those three, what would you say as the most important one from your perspective for Montel?
Hard to pick a favorite, but I think the security and then on the product development side, the AI thing will be the biggest trends. Yeah.
And I think it's quite interesting that we are seeing similar trends. Of course, that a lot of companies are putting more emphasis in the compliance and in the data residency, where the data is located. Is everything secure on the infrastructure level and then on the application level and all that? And then, of course, on the product development side, everyone's talking about how can we leverage AI or machine learning in our work and in our way of offering services. So in that perspective, it's quite interesting to hear that it's definitely something, because both of our sources are hearing the same story. So.
Exactly, yeah, and I think there's for a year or a year and a half, there's been a lot of talk, some kind of proof of concepts. I think finally in next year we're going to see some concrete benefits of using AI in even small to medium businesses.
For sure. Completely lost my train of thought. Let me collect my thing. It had to do with the security aspect. Yes, especially now with the, let's say, global situation being as uncertain as it is, showing kind of from all directions, the security and data compliance that Jannika just mentioned has definitely been cropping up more. And is this something that you've noticed while discussing, especially moving to the cloud? Because I'm kind of seeing some uncertainty in customers moving towards the cloud because hey, it's an uncertain situation we are in. Can we actually be sure that it's secure, it's compliant? Is this something that you have had to alleviate, or is it something that you haven't seen yet?
Definitely, I think that when we've been seeing more and more these cyber attacks coming from actual national bigger entities, or then just separate anarchist hacker groups, whatever. I think that's also put a lot of people on the edge, and we're seeing more these kind of, for instance, threat detection tools, or that our customers can detect that if there is a DDoS attack happening, where is it coming from, and how can they actually prepare themselves and prevent that from affecting their business. So that's something we've seen, especially now during this year, that there's been more and more queries for that kind of solutions, and I think also on the solution side there's been better and better solutions now offered for Kubernetes as well. So Kubernetes native solutions that tackle these things. Probably going to be putting those more and more into use during next year.
Yeah, DDoS is actually an interesting thing that's raised its head again this year, and is definitely on the rise as a method of attack, clearly visible all over the field.
And that is actually true. If you think about a couple of years back, I rarely heard about, from any customer, they were just like technically a checkbox item, that it was somewhere there in the back of their minds maybe, but now I feel like it's more and more coming actually as a topic, that companies are talking about it and thinking about it, which is of course...
And of course there have been few like high profile cases, like the banking sector here in Finland, that's been a bit under siege.
Yeah, exactly, and that affects like your everyday consumer.
Of course,
can't access banks. We've had a customer we helped with who didn't get attacked by a DDoS, but who got attacked by just a leaked password and username. And then when the attacker is already in your system, then they can do a lot more damage. And there's different ways to approach this, and of course these kind of cases are more tricky because in from the application perspective, it's a valid request. It's just happening a million times a second. So some different measures have to be taken, and you need again a team with understanding both of the infrastructure side as well as then the application development.
And this is something that we of course here, like on our tech side, have to tackle as well. Now that DDoS is rising again, we need to think about ways that we can mitigate it on a larger scale as well, because we have to often be able to tackle it even before it reaches the application layer. Because if it's there, then if you're on a shared server with everyone else, then it's going to affect everybody. So we need to be able to isolate and grab those even earlier, and be able to mitigate it so that you and the rest of the 100 guys that are on the same server don't get affected in some situations, of course. Like, so that's been something that is definitely has to be worked on and taken care of.
Constant race. Then the DDoSers come up with new solutions, and then you come up with new solutions to tackle those. So
that's always like the situation with security. It's like it's never ready, so it's like forever work there.
Process.
All right. Any questions on your mind at the moment?
No, all good.
All right. In that case, we'll move to the last section. So to finish, we have a few quick questions. You can answer these with a single sentence or a few words, whatever feels comfortable.
Okay.
You can expand if you wish, but you don't have to. But there's a few. So starting off, we kind of covered this a bit already, but what is the cloud trend you see currently emerging in Europe that interests you yourself the most?
Again, I have to pick a favorite. The automated security tools is something I'm focusing very much on now.
All right.
That's going to be interesting.
All right, then. Maybe a bit more personal one.
Ooh.
So when you're not navigating the cloud, what would you say is your favorite place on Earth?
It's going to be the Montel hut, right, in this sense.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Name one book, movie, or experience that has had a great impact on you.
Oh no, now I have to remember some names. I do remember the movie, but I can't remember the name of the movie.
You can
right.
describe the movie.
We can do a bit of a guess here.
Okay. Let's see if you guess the movie. It's a story of a young guy who decides to cancel or cut in half all his credit cards and get rid of his identity and go on a endless road trip that ends up him being dead in the middle of Alaska.
Oh, I was saying that it sounds like a dream until I heard the last one.
Yeah, it's actually a real story
Oh my.
based. The Wild something maybe.
Yes, it's the Call of the Wild. No,
Could
I know this. I've seen this movie. This is actually bothering me quite a bit. But yes,
that was very touching. Yeah.
it
Yeah,
is.
I
And
can
it's an
imagine.
interesting. We'll have to check that one.
Yeah, we'll
'cause-
fact check that one. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
very good movie.
for sure.
Yeah. Then a last one. This is, at least for me, quite interesting one. And also probably people who are listening or watching as well, is that from your perspective, what's the one thing you wish people would take away from this conversation we've had today?
The one thing I would hope that people take away is that don't fear the migrations. That you'll have to do it at some point, and just with a very low barrier, just get in contact and let's just talk. And then maybe you end up doing it yourself, but you'll just end up doing it, and that's the most important thing.
Having the understanding there.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll try to distill a bit what we've discussed here, and please fill in if I forget something or
The name of the movie was Into the Wild.
Into the Wild.
Yes.
Thank you. There we go. Perfect. Lauri from Montel here with us, and we've been discussing migrations into the cloud, and of course the work you do to help other companies work inside the cloud, develop stuff there, especially on Kubernetes. All kinds of organizations are moving because everyone will have to, at some point, migrate into the cloud, and the motivations change from company to company. But usually, it's kind of you've reached the point where it's become a necessity, or you want to do it for reasons that help you move forward easier, faster, cheaper, whatever it might be. The migrations themselves are a lot easier nowadays. Kubernetes is a lot more mature product, which is why you guys utilize it and want to use it, because it just makes
Swear by it. Yeah.
everyone's life so much easier. And that's also making lives easier is part of the reason why we are working together, because you're able to utilize the layers of managed services that we offer. And that's a trend that you've also seen, is the abstraction layer has risen. You're not thinking of actually just putting servers somewhere, but you're thinking of what you need to run on top of those to make the managed services run, and make sure that everything runs and is working as intended. And then in 2025, you guys are looking towards security and AI as trends, especially, that will be coming up.
Yeah, and probably some hybrid cloud setups,
Yes.
but more and more Kubernetes, definitely.
All right. Well, let's us together, Montel and UpCloud, make sure that the European Kubernetes is the best that it can be. We'll provide it. You make sure everybody uses it.
Yeah,
And
sounds good.
we'll make Kubernetes the thing for next year.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Lauri, for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have this chat with you and talk a bit about how migrations to the cloud happen with Montel.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It's fun.